So those who have read this particular article, I am sure you understand it on your own. But those who haven't, this is a small interlinkage that he is trying to make. That is, China is having good relations with three countries. That is China, Russia, Iran, and Pakistan. Right. So how or what role does these countries play in relation to our response to India? Because almost with the same countries, India have a very good linkage. Okay, relation may or may not be an apt term, but they need India, India needs them. For example, with Russia, we have good all-weather friendship, defense partnership, and a lot of things. With Pakistan, we don't want headaches. Okay, even if there is no friendship, we prefer not to have headache. Like it, status quo ante, like in a peaceful time, is much appreciated with Pakistan. Whereas with Iran, we need it for energy security. Now, there is one more article in Indian Express which argues the rise of China and what is the mindset of China in relation to USA. So combining all these things, we can come to one simple conclusion that the only source that China have is money power, right? It actually does not have either soft power, moral authority, or that persuasion relation, right? All these three things are missing. The other day we were discussing about Afghanistan. I mentioned nobody is filling the boots of USA. Everybody was getting the benefit that the peace that was provided from USA, right? But if we see the alternatives to USA in that global leadership role, no country is even closer, right? Again, you can argue that money is the one that has driven America's rise, because without money or without American military bases, without American industries, businesses, and all these things, nobody would have preferred to make friendship with America. But because of its sheer money power and being a democracy, okay, it was able to do whatever it wanted to do. Coming to China's rise cannot be taken for granted. It's like, every day or every ball is like the last ball of the innings. It's like climax. Everything is a climax. Why? He argues that Russia and USA relations can be easily revived, and it may not push the further closeness of Russia and China relations. The same is with Pakistan. Pakistan now will have its own headache in the form of Taliban, and Pakistan internal politics also have a lot of issue. If you see recently, there was a bomb blast in Pakistan where Chinese citizens were killed, a bus blast. So Pakistan is claiming it's an accident, whereas China is saying it's a terror activity. So there is some kind of friction between Pakistani citizens and the Chinese governments. Okay, so the trust is not there. When it comes to Iran, Iran is only going closer to China as a plan B mechanism because of JCPOA. If Donald Trump did not push America away from Iran, okay, this deal would have never have happened, right? So China's long-term rise is always subjected to external threats, and that is what is boosting the insecurity of China. So the Chinese government always have this insecurity, and rightly so. And as he argues here, it is a responsibility of the democratic countries to take advantage of the frictional weaknesses and exploit it to the maximum extent. Okay, so that is what he is trying to argue. Yes, if you have any questions, please let me know. So definitely we have to look at multiple frictions that are there in the Chinese traditional setup, right? One is the lack of democracy. The other one is its continuous tensions with its neighbors, and financially is definitely a weakest link, one of the weakest links, because see, it is also the weakest link of almost all the countries, right? But that is where they are trying to be superior to others as much as possible. That is why China is trying to pin down India, so that there won't be an alternative to China. Okay. So those who haven't read this article, I encourage you to read this article. It's good. It will give you some perspectives. The other article I was talking about is by Vijay Gokhale. This is about the internal politics of China, or the relation between USA and China. Not totally needed for UPSC perspective, but there are some important questions that he puts up for India. From Indian perspective, there are 3 questions that he asks. The first perspective is paradigm shift of post-COVID Chinese foreign policy. So here what China is trying to say is, we won't say we are number one. They actually cannot say they are number one, because as everybody knows, or everybody in this class knows, or we have discussed earlier also, China has sunk too early. It has declared its global dominance a few years too early, and unfortunately COVID came in the worst time possible for China. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Now before that, what is China trying to say? China is trying to say USA is number one, no doubt about it, but whatever we do internally, USA should not intervene. So the policies of China should not be questioned by USA or anyone. Second thing, we will dominate the Asian region. We are kings here. You are king of the world. Okay, fine, you take that crown, do whatever you want to do. Okay, but for Asia, we are the undisputed kings. Please don't come into our territory. And next, wherever China tries to expand its tentacles, okay, the first hurdle is USA. And that is why China always perceives that its regional ambitions are always thwarted by USA. Whether you take the domination of South China Sea or Indian Ocean, or securing its interest elsewhere, always the first phase that is there to control China is USA. Especially under Joe Biden's rule, we have seen that he went to Russia to discuss with the Putin. That clearly shows that he is trying to limit. He is also keeping the doors open to JCPOA. So the present USA government is very clear on what its stand should be towards uh, China. And one more important thing is, USA is also attacking the source of income for Chinese companies. Okay, the first rule that the US Biden government recently introduced is Chinese tech giants. Okay, Chinese tech giants cannot launch an IPO in USA, okay, without getting their books audited by some American company. Where they stand. Okay, the same trick is being used by China. So what USA is saying is, we don't want American money going into Chinese companies. That trick is old, that is done. Okay, now you understand the context why Indian companies are receiving a lot of influx. Okay, I'm not saying that they don't have merit, but you can also understand the sidetrack. Sorry. So this can be understood as a new trade war in digital arena. Okay. So in every way possible, USA is trying to limit the growth of China, which was given a free pass under successive governments. Okay, especially Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the biggest blessing that China received. Now, among all these things, what are the lessons that India needs to learn? India needs to take care of its own interest, and India should also go for issue-based coalitions. That is what we are doing, right? Strategic autonomy. So this is one more article by Mr. Ashok Gulati. So what he is trying to tell in this particular article is, okay, sorry, if China pursues India to be an ally of USA, how would it deter the relations, as they themselves state that bilateral issues should be kept away from bilateral trade? I didn't understand the question. If China is, okay, would it deter the relations? Okay. See, again, at our present position, the best way forward for India is to have unlimited patience and focus on Atmanirbharta, right? Without money, all the continuous discussions that we will have in relation to IR will become futile and useless. Because if we don't have money, we can't even control the relations of Sri Lanka. Yes, then we cannot solve anything with anyone unless we have money. So everybody should this show and stop. It keeps on going. Even with India, we are increasing our trade with China. So as far as I understand your question, overcome dollar dominant. That is exactly my point, right? China is striving for renminbi to overcome dollar as a dominant currency, and also during COVID times, its economy is the first to recover than USA. So it's a good point, but you need to understand the damage that has been done to China by the COVID, right? Every country is now going for CBDR, not CBDR, central bank digital currency. So China may take some advantage there, but everybody else will follow up very soon. So that advantage will be neutralized. And also China might have recovered, but alternative supply chains are also being created. So if you say 10 years down the line, all the tricks China has used are exposed. So China don't have some secret power right now to get back the momentum going on. So I hope all of you are reading Indian Express suggested articles. If you haven't, this is about cooperative societies. So Ashok Gulati sings the same song. That is, cooperative societies are fine, but the success story of milk in India is not only by cooperative societies, it is by giving the private sector the freedom. Okay, give cooperative societies or private sector the freedom to do whatever they want to do. Only then there will be a success. As long as you dominate the cooperative societies with bureaucrats and politicians, the same mindset will be there. No new change is going to come. Only when market, private sector, private entrepreneurs, startups, these people enter into these arenas, whether it's vegetables, milk, or any other type of cooperative, that is where we are going to see the boom. Okay, so he takes the case study of 1992, where Varghese Kuren model was delisted. That means anybody can go and do the business. Then that is when the boom started. As long as you try to creep the cooperative societies under some political interference or red tapeism, just like the panchayatis, they will be there in theory. They will be political tools, but not empowerment tools. Okay, so his simple argument is private sector will bring in more professionalism, and profits will motivate them to get more motivated. So I don't see why not. That is actually true, right? At least in the case of uh, this MSMEs and cooperative societies, all these things should be given total freedom. A tolerant India can be majoritarian. Now, who wants to explain this article? All those who have access to mics are free to unmute and explain this article. Don't type, don't waste your words. I want to hear from you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
The article speaks about the recent Pew survey report, and it describes how the nature of Indian society regarding the tolerance of other religions and other cultures. And it also shows that though in our India, the across cutting across all the religious and castes, all the religious and castes, they are culturally tolerant and they are okay with propensity of other cultures. But when it comes to their intermixing, then when it comes to intermixing, then they are not okay with that. So, but in the last paragraph also suggests that is contrary in case of South India, where intercultural, interreligious and inter-caste interactions are more.
Okay, so that's your interpretation, right? Nice, very nice, Santosh. Yes, Chakri. After the class, please let me Vijay sir know that from tomorrow onwards I will be uploading the classes in a YouTube fashion and I will share the link, right? So I won't be taking classes, I will be just monologuing. That means I will take an iPad to the screen recorder, I will record the videos and I will upload on YouTube. All of you can listen, right? There is no need for classes from tomorrow onwards. Okay, I upload the so please make sure that you tell Vijay sir the same thing. Okay, now coming back to this particular article, the most important thing that one need to understand is we have seen during the Pew courses or Pew report that we are totally used to these contradictions. Okay, we are totally used to these contradictions. That means, see, we never had a discussion that not a single parliamentarian has been elected from a political party. We took it as it's totally fine. It's what we call as normal, though it is very antithetical to democracy. See, a particular political party can have a different ideology, right? You can exclude a microscopic minority in the sense a few transgenders. Again, I am not targeting BJP. I'm generally saying, let's say microscopic minority, transgenders or LGBT or a gay or a lesbian, someone like that. If a political party haven't given a seat to such kind of people, okay, then it's okay to understand that these people are skipped by the political party. When 20 crore or 30 crore population is there, and in spite of all these things, if you're not electing someone, and it's okay or accepted by the majoritarian population, there is something to be discussed. It cannot be seen in a moral lens, right or wrong. It's totally the right of that particular political party, right? We don't have to uh, worry about that particular political party. Okay, but the thing is, what about the rest? Why are we making it a normalized scenario? Next, is it happening vice versa? If it is opposite, would we still have a complaint? Let's say AI, All India Muslim League, okay, OIC party, hypothetically speaking, I don't know its facts, I don't know its spread, but let's say how many, hypothetically again, a Brahmin membership or some Hindu, upper caste Hindu, have been given seats by that particular political party? Yes. And how many of them are winning the elections? Okay, how many of them are winning the elections is something to be seen, something to be noted. This life of contradictions that we live should have a limitation, right? Because if it is normalized, that is what is hindering the growth or social progress of this entire nation. That is what he is trying to argue. So that is what he says. Let's say a upper caste fellow, a OBC, or someone. So we are totally used to live in this completely isolated boxes. Okay, and we are totally okay as long as you don't enter into my box. The same argument, the Pew Research Day, I told you the same thing. As long as you allow me to live in my box, my bubble, okay, and you live in your bubble, everybody is collectively living in our own bubbles, and the entire bubble is India. Okay, again, bubble will be too much. Entire sovereignty is India. Then it's totally fine. Come 1,000 reports, I will say I'm totally fine with Muslims living in this country, Christians living in this country, scheduled caste people living in this country, everybody living in this country. I have no problem as long as you listen to my rule. What is that rule? The size of the population and the power will always be in opposite proportions. Okay, this is universally true, not only unique to India, right? So the smallest minority, not in any religious, cultural, or any other terms, the smallest minority will hold the maximum power. Okay, as long as you allow this to continue and you allow this to continue, the boxes, and you maintain this vertical and horizontal differences, okay, everything is fine. Not a single problem is there in this country. Okay, the moment you break anything, whether it's this or the bubbles or the thali example, right? We understood the thali. Okay, that is where the problem will arise. Okay, yeah, in that sense, yes, we are totally a multicultural country, a totally religious, cultural, you say diversity is our asset, so on and so forth, but in reality this is what it is. And this, you can show the same in every country, right? We cannot have 1,000 prime ministers and all those things. That's totally commonsensical. This is common in political sphere in every country, but also true in economic, cultural, economic power, political power, and social power. The same applies. Okay? As long as we maintain these contradictions, we are totally fine as a majoritarian country. Now, this skyboxification concept is not totally new, and we have seen this even in TSR Subramaniam's book. I have told you once that all you have to do is close your curtain. As long as I live in Hyderabad in a penthouse with 3 ACs, right? I don't know what is going in the mind of my watchman or his or her family, or in his village to his parents. Okay, I'm totally isolated from the society, and from that bubble, okay, I'm seeing everything is fine, right? Whether it's work from home or whether it's from getting food, 24/7 medicines or whatever, through just the click of a button, I feel everything is fine. But if you actually go and talk to the last man in the line, that is when the governance problems. But the thing is, this skyboxification is a moral hazard that is happening in every country, not only in India again. Now, how do we change that? We cannot change that. If the skyboxification is not happening through economic terms, we have it in through cultural terms or social terms. Okay, there is always a gap between your ear and the ground because of multiple layers. Okay, money, caste, religion. Within caste, there are subcastes, right? I mean, India is the only country where Islam have, I think, 50 or 55 subcastes. Okay, nowhere in the world Islam has caste system. Okay, so we created this gap between ear and the ground through multiple levels, and whatever we hear, we have normalized it. Okay, because of this kind of surveys make a very interesting read on the ground realities of India. So simply put, for those who didn't understood, boxes are not only in moderate. Okay, so yeah, we are tolerant. It's simply put, it's like, saying relatives can come as long as they don't sleep in my room, or I don't have to sacrifice my room or my comfort for them. Yeah, relatives can come and stay in 10 days, 15 days, no issues. Why? I am safe first. Okay, so that's the criteria that we are using. As long as everybody is coming, fine, but don't disturb my comfort zone. So that's one way to understand that particular article. Next, one more interesting article which is having a lot of value for GS paper 2 governance part is this. Okay, so Supreme Court mulls limit to role of policy. We have discussed this. Now, what is so special about this particular article? There are two ways to look at the Supreme Court judgments. One is the judgment given by a division board. The other one is by the three-member board headed by D.Y. Chandrachud and probably recently the Chief Justice Ramana judgment also. Now, how do we understand it? See, of all the utopian discussions we have in the classes, or in the GS paper 2 answer writing, you should not do this, you cannot do this in the ethics and all those things. It's totally understandable. But at the ground level, it's the executive who always faces the problem. So if you take the executive, the most common visible person is a police constable. Okay, I cannot go to a police constable who graduated, let's say, 10 years ago, who doesn't have any other extra skill training development in the last 10 years. Okay, he's totally used to a fixed life set. He will get a certain amount of salary. Yes, he will get a certain amount of lifestyle. He is probably used to watching or taking the reports in a certain understanding, getting used to the system, house trained, right? If you are working in police station for 10 years, you will develop certain stereotypes, you will develop certain ideas, you will develop certain hunches. So all these things are standardized more or less. And in 14,000 rupees salary, you cannot expect him to work for 16 hours a day. But that is exactly what is happening at the ground level. So when Supreme Court comes and say executive is not working, we are not foolish as at least a educated person to really understand, yeah, constable is not doing his work. That was never supposed to be for the constable. Okay, for a 14,000 rupees salary, I will never work for 16 hours a day, right? But a majority of the police force is doing that, and they are also willing to sacrifice their life sometimes. That's the courage that a common executive is showing. A compounder getting 6,000 rupees salary will be looking for extra bribe money. Okay, so I am not saying it should be justified, but the thing is, we cannot expect the Supreme Court orders actually directly apply to him. But normally speaking, again, who does it apply to, and is it actually separation of power violation? So we will think of this particular diagram in a different fashion. Now, just focus on this particular red dot. Okay, so I hope it's visible. Yes. So think that first red dot, this dot, okay, as government's decision making. Government, Government is who? So many people, from prime minister all the way till the local SI, everybody is government. So for this discussion, we will limit it to cabinet. Okay, so cabinet have a lot of things to do. Cabinet have this dot to take care of, dot 2, dot 3, dot 4, and dot 5. Okay, so as you can clearly see, dot 5 is not something that the government is so willingly or interestedly to do. So what does it do? It does a very slow job. It takes so many U-turns, Y-turns, Z-turns, whatever turns, and slowly try to reach that particular political point. Okay, so reaching that dot means it is providing that particular service, or it is doing its job, right? So it's nobody's case to say that you have to do this quickly, you have to do this fastly. Normally speaking, poverty or population control, all these things are for multiple reasons not under my control. Sometimes I try, but I may fail. Sometimes there is lack of political will. You can understand the entire problem. But there are some dots, let's say defense of the country, or number 2, let's say, is about railways. So these things were automatically taken care of. Nobody need to tell the government what to do. Okay, this much is very clear, right? I hope everybody understands that. I mean, that is government is doing its own job. Now think about this pink circle. Yes, this is some dot, or this pink circle is a dot or a service which is supposed to be done by the government. Okay, but if you understand the color differentiations, orange, that means government's intention is not even there in the pink circle. That means government is not saying that, either because of bounded rationality or either because of some other reason or lack of resources. Government is not able to see this particular pink dot. Then what government is doing is, it is still focusing as usual, business as usual on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, that is when Supreme Court, if it comes and say, government, please focus on dot 6. Okay, what we call as judicial intervention or judicial reactiveness, or what we call as separation of breaking of powers, breaking of separation of powers. Okay, now why we have to understand all these things in in-depth fashion? Because fundamental rights and time are a parallel. Okay, they keep on flowing. Just because you don't see it, or you don't have time, or you don't have resource, or you haven't paid attention, the flow of fundamental rights or the flow of time doesn't stop. My right to life will keep flowing, the time will also keep flowing. Okay, now just think of this 6th dot as a Safai Karamchari, right? 6th dot is Safai Karamchari, who is walking 100 miles to reach her hometown. Okay, a migrant labor or something like that. Her fundamental rights didn't stop because you have limited resources or you don't have enough focus, right? If Supreme Court comes and say, please focus on number 6 also, Supreme Court is doing exactly what you are already supposed to do. By sheer virtue of omission or commission, you have missed that particular political point. Sorry, not political point, that point. That is why Supreme Court is doing its duty. What is the duty of Supreme Court? To make sure that this blue line is continuing. Irrespective of time, the parallels have to be maintained. Okay, that is why you are state. You have unlimited capacity. Okay, the counter argument is state have limited resources. Heads should roll. Okay, if somebody was already told to take care of this particular point number 6, and if he's not doing his duty, or if he didn't do his duty in the right time, okay, he should be sacked without second thought, or he should be suspended. So if that kind of dedication and commitment is there for the welfare of the people, then things will take care of itself. Okay, so this is what is the line taken by Chandrachud in one particular judgment. Okay, you have to keep things rolling. It can't mean I will stop something because I don't have resources. That is not how fundamental rights and constitution will work. Right? I gave you a very lengthy explanation because I wanted this point to be in your mind, very deeply ingrained. We are not talking about separation of powers. We are not talking about judiciary doing the executive's work. We are talking about a scenario where judiciary is reminding that you have missed point number 6. Okay, it's not blaming that you are not looking at 6. It's saying probably you ignored it, or your attention is occupied by 1 2 3 4 5. It's worth your time to look at 6, because 6 is a very important thing. Whether it's about oxygen cylinders, whether it's about the vaccine policy. Right now, if you see, after unifying this vaccine policy, we don't see the discussion, right? We don't see the energy of the government being wasted, whether states should procure the vaccine or central should procure the vaccine, or what should be the prices. The debate is buried. That means point number 6 is closed forever, and everybody is going back to their own work. 1 2 3 4 5. Right? So I hope you understand the flow, the concept of flow. It's not about situation. I totally understand. Right, because without that, for you, for me, again, we live in a penthouse, probably things will run. But for a migrant labor, but for someone who actually needed this immediate focus, okay, again, say, I don't want to get into the politics, but just think about point number 5 as Central Vista project. Okay, hypothetically, again, BJP fans don't get offended. Central Vista project, sky won't fall down if Central Vista project, the 20,000 crores are diverted to point number 6. Okay, because you can always come back and construct the parliament building in next 6 months. Nobody is going to stop you, because Supreme Court has already given the blessings. But the 20,000 crores could have been focused on point number 6. Again, I'm saying hypothetically, if need be. But if you have 40,000 crores, you keep continuing point number 5, but also focus on point number 6. Because for 6, what you do is life and death. He is also a citizen of India. He have all the fundamental rights, and it cannot stop because he have limited capacity. Right? So this is one nice way to understand why the fundamental rights are above everything else, and everything else falls below that. Okay, again, this is my interpretation of the entire debate. You can have your own interpretation. You can use it however you want to like. So I have taken this from this particular article, and I try to link it with the core tenets. So some of you might be thinking, I have read Lakshmikant, I know all these things. But the thing is, applying it to answer writing is one thing. Knowing that fundamental rights are paramount is one thing. And one more important point from this particular article is court is a dialogic jurisdiction. That means court is acting as a funnel where all the debates that are happening. Again, for lack of space, okay, I will draw here. If this is central government, if this pink dot is central government, okay, it has lot of points to focus upon, right? I cannot have all the focus on everybody at the same time. I am also a limited capacity system. Now, what court is providing is, it is providing a funnel to here. Right? Court is acting as a bridge to filter the messages that are supposed to be filtered, and the system will focus on that. Yes. What is the most useful recent case? Again, you can take section 124A. Section 124A, you might talk around 326 sedition cases have been filed as per today's Hindu, right? It may not break the entire system, but that fundamental right of one individual, when it is failed because your attention is so scattered, the system as a whole has failed, right? So it is able to funnel it. Okay, let's say the new Pegasus issue is going on. 1 hour ago or 2 hours ago, somebody told even Rahul Gandhi's phone was under Pegasus attack, Prashant Kishore, so many other people. And the most interesting person in the entire list is that lady. I don't know how many of you remember that lady who complained against the Chief Justice of India about sexual harassment. Okay, her and her entire family members' phones have been under Pegasus attack. That's the most interesting name in the entire list. Opposition parties we can understand. Now, her fundamental right have been violated very severely if it is true. again, if it is not allegation, if it is true, her fundamental right is violated. Fundamental right of one individual is equally important as everybody's fundamental right, because tomorrow if your phone has been hacked by Pegasus, you cannot come and cry, okay, only when it happened. In the long run, system has to be protected. System has to be made foolproof. That is why we have systems. Okay, so those are the two most UPSC worthy articles in today's newspaper. We will see how today, how sedition case will go ahead. Yes. So can we link this to importance of human? Okay, fine. I forgot this article. Okay, I just want to briefly discuss this. Now the point is, there is no way on the planet Earth we can actually add a price tag to a human life. Okay, at the same time, we cannot be taking a moral high horse in every sense that government should be able to see everything. Okay, bounded rationality is very true. The other day I have showed you an article, right? If you limit the number of seats in a bus, that will lead to sexual harassment in the bus stand. Nobody with the right mind would have thought that, unless you already have experienced something like that elsewhere. You read a case study or something like that. Systems will always have a bounded rationality. When COVID pandemic was happening, there are two stands. If you remember this particular diagram of mine, I have drawn this. Your vision is limited, right? It's in darkness, unknown. Okay, beyond this pink line, it was totally unknown. I don't know what is about to happen beyond this particular line. Within this capacity, that means within under this blue line, okay, from this to this, whatever happened, you can blame me. Positive, I will take the credit. Negative, I totally deserve to be blamed. Okay, but beyond this blue line, whatever is happening is not in the state's hands, right? So lockdowns are the worst measures, but they are the only measure available at that particular time, right? But second wave lockdowns, they could have been probably avoided. Okay, for second wave, this blue line extends to here, but for first wave, the blue line was only till here, right? So third wave, the blue line actually extends till here. If third wave happens in India, God forbid, and we actually go into a very strict lockdown in state level, okay, that will be totally human stupidity, and that will be 100% our fault. Here it's only, let's say, 10 to 15% is our fault. Here 60% is our fault. Here 100% is our fault. So the levels of understanding, when they increase, the lockdowns become the least important tools. Coming back to this particular argument, after understanding that, so he says one line where he says insurance premiums can be used to identify the life. I honestly don't understand how that actually works.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, a tangential question on the previous article about judiciary. Sir, aren't we discussing the most crucial issues in the courts rather than in public spaces? I mean, most of the, is it, I mean, at least it looks that we are lacking constitutionalism. That's what I felt when you were talking about that article.
This one?
Yes, sir. I understand
the policy was that.
Yeah, but most of the crucial judgments, either the privacy judgment or the
LGBT.
LGBT judgment, exactly. Those are supposed, I mean, judiciary is doing proactive work, which is good, but equally it is necessity of the legislature and the executive to have that dialogue, right? So are we missing out on that as a society, and what should we do about it?
See, again, his question is very simple. By we also know the answer. We actually know the answer, right? See, as Dr. Ambedkar 70 years ago, okay, such a visionary, he told us a very simple concept. We are a highly societally moral society, like moral dominated country. We even today in 2021 are ruling our lives with societal morality. Okay, now the outer fence is imposed by constitution. Okay, this outer fence is constitution morality. We don't have that thing, something called as constitutional morality as a society. Okay, we don't have that, we cannot have that, but we have something called as societal morality, which is equally true. Because I am afraid of this societal morality, I take the recourse of judiciary. When judiciary says something, okay, society has to accept, right? And I did discuss in my classes, if you remember, whether it's Ayodhya judgment where the judges did not write their name, or other judgments where Supreme Court is allowing the government to do some things which are not supposed to be done by the government, because there is a fear that one day society might stand up and say, I don't want to listen to you, right? Then there won't be a single institution in India which can actually control the societal morality. The only institution in India which actually controls the societal morality, we all assume it's the law, but it's not, it's a perception. It's the judiciary which is creating a perception. Now that Supreme Court has said, it has to be accepted, respected. And see, the flaw in the system, the breakdown in the system is acting as a cushion. I will tell you an example, you will totally understand this. LGBT judgment has come. Okay, Navtej Singh Johar judgment has come. It will take, hypothetically, 2030 for this Navtej Singh Johar judgment to be implemented in letter and spirit. Right? This breakdown of constitutionalism from day one is what is setting the society to slowly transform towards constitutional morality. If the system is perfect from day one, the very next day when privacy judgment came, okay, if some gay couple went and say, I want to marry him or her, okay, the hell will break loose in India, right? So because the system is designed in such a flawed fashion, it is allowing the constitutionalism to trickle down. And that is why we don't see all these discussions happening in public spaces, because we want to happen the discussions in courts, judiciary, so that when it says, the trickle down theory will take time and everybody is getting what they want to. Okay, but if we bring out these discussions in public sphere, unnecessary lot of damage will happen and these implementations will happen even more delay. I'm not saying this is the best way forward, but jugaad. Okay, Indians have their own jugaad. If Prime Minister Modi stands up and say tomorrow onwards, a girl can marry fellow girl, or a boy can marry some other person, okay, it will create a lot of political problems. I don't want to do that. But he wants to India to be a progressive nation where everybody can marry everyone. So the trickle down theory in constitutional morality has to be understood in this particular sphere, right? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir.
Again, I totally understand why we cannot have these discussions, because how do I say? For a society which is still hell-bent on marrying their daughters below the age of 18 because of poverty, because of COVID, we cannot convincingly go and tell them that, your daughter has a right to marry someone she prefers. So that's something really, really understandable. And this has given an undue advantage to the judiciary, no doubt about it. At the same time, constitutional abdication has happened, evasion in a way. That means all the duties that are supposed to be done, whether it's Sabarimala judgment, outsourced to judiciary, Triple Talaq outsourced to judiciary, Ayodhya judgment outsourced to judiciary. So a lot of things have been outsourced to judiciary, right? Probably IOJ judgment may not be, because there are constitutional issues involved, but most of the executive judgments are being outsourced. Even 124A, right? In a progressive democracy, we can have a committee, we can have a parliamentary debate about it 1 or 2 days. Then government can come to a conclusion saying, okay, we may not totally remove it, but we will dilute it heavily, and we will impose stricter benchmarks for it to be implemented in the society. Then the democracy will be happy. But we haven't heard such kind of discussion, right? So, and opposition parties are not willing to bring the government to accountability by bringing such discussions. Neither is media. Media is happy for more than 8 years for not asking the accountability from Prime Minister in any sense. So as long as I'm happy to outsource it to judiciary, okay, and there is no pressure from media or opposition parties, the system will keep on continuing. No one want to hurt himself or become the victim to change the society unless he is willing to be social reformer, and may also even ready to give up life in extraordinary cases. Maybe nobody have that kind of social commitment, or everybody can be blamed as anti-national as quickly as they open the mouth. So there are a lot of changes, right? See, the other day I told definitely Kerala, Odisha police recruiting. See, the other day I think I answered the Count India in the same fashion, right? I told him for a child born in 2020 India, when he or she grows up, seeing a transgender as a police officer, as in a railway station or something else, may not be something, what we call as a unique thing. It's totally a normal thing, but for us it's a giant leap. Now, what is the only step to make all these debates happen in mainstream media? I will show you a wonderful article. Please make sure you read it, make notes from it. When 3 lakh people died, okay, do you think this is going to change? Less than 1% of the voters have said health was their consideration while voting. Okay, certainly is what Sindhu is saying. We will see that when 2022 elections are about to happen. No, when they are voting, they voted for a political party while thinking about health. What are the promises given to health? Like, I'm voting for my MP because this particular political party said they will invest 2.5% of the GDP in health. I don't know who those 1% are. Okay, so again, I think it's a fake survey. So this number has to go up, so that might push people to consider in a different line. But again, you have to link every article discussed today to understand the present status of Indian democracy. See, this is exactly where EPW would have come into the picture. There is a very, very, very beautiful article written by Andhra Bette in Economic and Political Weekly, right? So where he argues, what kind of democracy are we? Like, is it a democracy which appears like a democracy, but nothing in reality is a democracy, right? So he nicely argues by bringing the distinction where he says we look like a democracy. We have elections, we have election commissioner, we have parliament, we have media, we have everything that a democracy checklist is supposed to have. But are we actually a democracy? Yes, I have the right to criticize my government, but that is again a as Kaushik Basu argues, right? What does that mean? You have that vent. Okay, you make me feel like I'm venting against the government, but actually it makes zero difference. Then what is the purpose of that vent? You make like you make me think like there is an anti-corruption bureau, there is an Lokpal Lokayukta. You don't have any difference because of them at the ground level. Then why do we have institutions? Right? So in that sense, we are not a functional democracy. We are a democracy in appearance. Right? You can criticize China as much as you want it as a dictatorial country. It will vanish people overnight and all these things. But if you are that brutal, really that brutal as shown in the movies every day, okay, with common people, do you think you would have survived for these many years? Do you think your country would have progressed in such a fashion with such brutality? China is a communist country in every sense, in appearance, but it was more than democracy in more number of democracy in reality. Now it is again behaving like a brute by controlling the tech giants and billionaires. That's a different issue, but that fear comes from insecurity. So the difference, if you understand that in theory we are a democracy, but we are not acting like a democracy in any sense. So that is when your understanding of Indian constitution will increase and how the Indian society will come into the picture. You may see a question which says, caste is a very dominant factor in political voting in the country. Our caste is still the most dominating factor of electing elections in this particular country. Critically analyze. That is when these kinds of data, these kinds of discussions will come into the picture. Think about it. Just think about it. Anybody is prime minister in this country. Okay, forget about Modi, Rahul Gandhi, and all those things. Tomorrow, let's say Smriti Irani has been made prime minister of this particular country. Okay, so things will go on as usual. Then some chief justice will be there, Ramana or someone will be there. He will tell her what to do in a particular case. The rest of the time, she is free to do whatever she wants to do. Yes, and the lower people, the lower people in the sense 99% of the population doesn't even have a clue on what is happening. Right? You're still a democracy. What changes? Or how does one man actually make any difference? Right? Agree to disagree when their voices are heard, but may not be implemented unless they yield power. So that's you remind me of the same argument in 2010 when this anti-corruption rally was being done by Anna Hazare, Kiran Bedi, Arvind Kejriwal. Everybody criticizes that there is a lot of corruption going in the system. Then one of the cabinet ministers, I don't remember whom, he very arrogantly said to Arvind Kejriwal, he said, if you are so bothered about the country, why don't you stand for the elections, win, become a member of parliament, then say there is a problem. Okay, I will listen to you. So in that sense, everybody who have a problem, every lobbying power group should have their own MP. Just like the TV channels we have, everybody should have their own MP and get things done. And then it's not representative democracy, right? It's mint your own MP democracy. So my sensitivities has to be understood. Yes, that is exactly Dr. Ambedkar has said. See, that is why criminalization of politics is still surviving. I suggested you Milan Vaishnav's book, right? When crime pays. That is exactly what he argues also. So it's the coterie, it's the boxes we create that work, not the overall box. Right. Okay, then please read two articles. One is the Indian Express explained article on health survey. The next one is Democratic Quad versus Chinese Quad. Those two are the most important articles in today's editorial. When the trafficking bill becomes reality, Andhra Bethe, ANDRE, Andhra Bethe, very famous sociologist. Okay. Right. I don't think you can download that article. By chance, if it is freely available, do let me know also. Yeah, sure. Please do read all the suggested articles. This particular article, Healthcare in India, just note down few points. It will be helpful for you. The other one is the Quad article I have already shared. Right. Do we have a survey report to tell how much reservation benefited SC/STs? Justice Rohini Committee, not Justice Rohini Committee. I think CDS surveys, Center for Democratic Study Survey, should bring out that data. And also, I think OBC categorization under Justice Rohini Committee also published some facts. If I find anything, I will send it your way, Vallabh. The optional article on employment, isn't it important? Which one, Aditya? Balakrishnan, Hindu. The one shared in the important article, but in the optional category. I will see and I will message you. Okay, the skilling. Yeah, definitely do read it. I mean, it was not in the print edition, it was only online article, right? Yeah. Okay, then I will end the session here. Thank you all.